Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Professor Sistrunk, and I'm reaching out to my Windows Server 1 students. I wanted to briefly go over the material that you are engaged in and pretty much point out some particular things that I need you to be on top of. First thing, registering for class. I have a few stragglers out there who haven't registered in their test out portal. I need you to get on top of that because I'm coming to the drop. And you know what the drop means? That means it's students that if they haven't completed an assignment in class, I have to drop you from the class. So please get on top of that. It's mandatory. The college mandates that we do that. So get on top of it. Sign in. I had a student say to me today that, hey, he just had to wait till he get paid so he can get the course, but I need you to get on top of it as soon as possible, ASAP. Completing class assignments. We are coming close to the end of the week. I know that a few of you gonna have excuses about not completing your assignments, but this week is the grace period. After this week, you will receive a 0 if you do not complete your assignments. So make sure you are on top of that. Now we're going to talk a little bit about what are the 3 common network models. We're going to talk about what are the benefits and drawback of a network, and we're going to talk about network models and what is the key networking model out there, which is the domain. Most of this stuff is really not important. The important stuff is making sure that you master and understand domain networking, and we're going to walk into that. So you see here what we call a server room, router room, network room. This is the room where all of the servers, the routers, the switches, the main devices end up being, and it is locked down, highly secure, because we don't want anyone to be able to get in there. So think about it like this. When you first walk up to the door to get in this room, it's a highly secure door. Only very few people got access to that door. When you get in the room, you're going to see a lot of cages and locks on the cages because we only want very few people to be able to access these devices. The people who access these devices, we tend to call them server administrators, network administrators, network technicians, but they on a higher level, so we don't want them to get in. And I just wanted to show you, if you notice right over here by looking at these servers, you see a bunch of different ports right here. These are actually SSD hard drives, meaning we can take a hard drive out while the server is on and running and pull it out. We call that a hot swappable or hot swap. So you can actually have your servers running. You don't have to shut them down. Pull out a hard drive and put that hard drive in. This is how servers look in the real world. Now you may come in a computer lab and we got this big clunky box over to the side and we call that a server. That's really not out in the industry no more. We can do a lot. You see all these different servers, and we actually call them blade servers, meaning that we can just pull out an entire server and a company is still functioning. Things are still going on, but we can get rid of it and put in another one. So this is a picture. Keep this picture in your mind when you think about servers, not them big clunky computer looking boxes that you see in a classroom. So what should you know when you complete this class? Well, if you in this particular class, you want to make sure that you have a clear understanding of installing and configuring servers, configuring Hyper-V, install and administrate Active Directory, DNS, network services, network server roles and features, group policy, very important, and also network settings and DHCP. But if you ask me, Professor, what's important? What really should I focus on when I'm going out there to get my first job? I'll say plain and simple, Active Directory. You need to know Active Directory. group policy, which is embedded in Active Directory. You need to know that. The rest of this you will learn as time goes on, but if you want a job in this industry, especially working on servers, master Active Directory, master group policy. I got several things up there. You see a total of around about 7 or 8 different things, or 9 to be exact. And the most important thing, group policy, Active Directory. So when you're going through this class, make sure you understanding how to work within those procedures or settings. Okay, next thing. So when someone asks you to do a particular job in the industry, they're gonna say, hey, go to Server Manager. Well, guess what? I'm about to show you what Server Manager is. I'm gonna talk about PowerShell. I'm not gonna talk about start screen, start buttons. You know what that is, charms. We don't need to talk about that. I'm not gonna talk about that. But let's take a look right now at what Server Manager would be. So in the midst of this particular lecture, I want to make sure that you get a real grasp of how to do servers and how to set up a server and what a server look like. If you notice right now on the screen, I have here my Google Cloud platform, and what I'm gonna do is pull up a server, and when I pull up that server, I'm gonna show you how we go through the different steps of setting up a particular server. So let's take a look at this real quick. In Google Cloud platform, I'm gonna click on here. I call this the hamburger buttons. People call it the navigation menu, but you're gonna hear different terms out there. I'm gonna click here, and I want to execute the process of deploying a server. Remember that word, deploying a server, or putting a server into the work area so people can begin to use it. So what I will do is go here to what I call my app engine. What I'm attempting to do is to show you how you can do a server in the cloud. In my next session, I'm gonna show you how you can do a server just using a USB drive. So I'm gonna show you multiple ways of how to install and build out a server. So you can have all these different ways. What you doing in test out, you're gonna see I'm actually gonna show you this in various forms. So I'm gonna come here and say VM installation. So I'm gonna pull up this VM instance real quick, give it a few minutes, and now I'm gonna show you the process of how we select a server. So I'm not gonna be doing a lot of PowerPoints and stuff. That's boring, you get tired of it. What I'm gonna be doing is actual hands-on work, showing you how to work through the process. One of the first parts of this class is to show you how to install a server. So when you in the cloud, we tend to say VM instance. What is VM? Well, it's a it's a virtual machine, meaning a virtual machine, and it's an instance. That means one particular machine that we put on Windows 2016. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and click it, create. Now, when you in the real world or you working in the virtual world, you have to build out your server. So the first thing you can see here is you have to give a server a name. If you notice, when you create your domain, and this is what it's DNS and DHCP and all that comes in. When you create your domain has to be named something. Normally we name it the company name, and this is where you'll start seeing these names play out. It's important that when you structure a naming system, it is first and most important a naming system that relates to your company, and you want to be professional. Please don't name one of these files some silly or some foolish. It must be professional, and do not put your name in. Well, if you're working for a company, they're gonna know, hey, you got your name on one of these files, what's wrong with you? You don't want to do that. So the name that I'm gonna give for this here, you'll see stuff like this, SR, I got caps on, case sensitive. Okay, let's take that off, SR1. So in most of the classes, you have a tendency of seeing things like this, SR1. That means server, or SV1. however you want to do it, okay? But most of the times you'll see people say server one or server this. They give it a name that represents that particular device and where that device is at. So make sure your naming system is rock solid. Moving right along. I want this server to be placed in the central region. So I'm gonna keep my region as central, and I'm gonna keep my zone as central. I'm not gonna change that. So I got the various two pieces. Now think about it for a minute. If I'm in a company, I know that one, people have to communicate inside of the company, and people have to communicate outside of the company. I have to secure inside of the company, and I have to secure outside of the company. And that's why I'm choosing these zones and regions. Even if I'm on premise, I have to focus on this particular stuff. This is important. Now, of course, I'm going to choose a machine type. Now, when you choose a machine type, remember that it's multiple machines out there. So think of it right here. I'm on the cloud. I'm in the cloud and I'm choosing a machine. But if you was on premise, you'll literally have to sit down with a group of people and make sure you make the proper decision on the different devices that you purchase. So if you're purchasing servers, you want to get the best server you can possibly get. Now that always falls back to how much money you can spend on that server or servers, but you want to make sure that you choose the right one. So I'm gonna choose a server. I'm pretty much gonna keep it the same way. My CPU is gonna be one CPU version 1, 3.75 gigabytes of memory on that CPU. That's the memory on the processor to make sure things run copacetic, as they say. So I'm gonna keep that. But as you can see, my boot disk, I have what they call Debian Linux right there. For my Linux people who are in my Windows class, get ready. You're going to get a video about Linux. But I want to change that. I want to change that because I want to choose Windows Server 2016. So I'm going to come up here, and as you can see, we got all these different type of network operating systems. And remember, that's what a Windows Server is all about. It's a network operating system. So I'm going to change that to Windows Server. When I change it to Windows Server, look what it throws. Windows Server version 1909 data center core for containers. Well, I don't really need containers, and don't worry, at the end of this chapter I'm going to explain to you what containers are, but I don't need containers for this. So I'm going to select the version that I want. Did I say version or version? Watch those words. Anyway, so I want to make sure I choose the correct one. If I choose Windows Server version 1909 data center core, I know some of you saying, Professor, you don't want to choose that one. Well, you know why? Because if I choose the core, what happens then is that I have to use PowerShell. And if I don't know PowerShell, I just lost a server. I really didn't lose it. I just got to make sure that I know PowerShell. I have somebody on my team that know PowerShell. So I don't want that. But what I do want to choose is Windows 2016 Data Center. Now the reason I'm choosing this, because that's going to give me that GUI interface, meaning I'm going to be able to log in and be able to do things because I'm using the GUI. Remember, core only gives you the command prompt, whereas without the core I can use the data center. Now I know some of you guys gonna say, well, Professor, if you got data center and core, can't you use both of them? Yes, I can, but what will come up first is the actual command prompt, and I don't want that. No. Let's go ahead and choose this. Let me make sure if I got everything correct. Okay, so I chose the correct stuff. I'm gonna keep it at a standard persistent disk at 50 gig. That means my hard drive in there is 50 gigabytes of memory, and it's going to be a standard persistent disk. Now you know the other persistent disk is what? You thinking? SSD. Okay then, moving right along. Select. Okay, so far I have chosen the things, but now in order for people to communicate in-house as well as out-house, I have to choose some type of firewall connection. So my firewall connection is going to allow HTTP traffic and HTTPS traffic. Okay, so I'm going to select both of them. And in the real world, we will set that up on the server too. Okay, now I'm gonna click create. Now that's a whole lot of things that I didn't do in here. I'm keeping it basic and standard, but it's a whole lot. So now think like this for a minute. As you can see up here, they're gonna charge me $55.47 monthly for this server. I can change things and not actually get charged that much. So let's say if I went in here and chose this here as a server, look, it went down to $20. Pay what you use, no upfront costs. So it went down. It's roughly 28 cents an hour. Or I can go here. Now you may say, well, Professor, why are you talking to us about how much it costs? Now think of an on-premise setup. With an on-premise setup, you buy all this product. You buy servers, you buy the cables, you buy everything it takes for that server to buy. And yes, that's one price. But now you have to maintain all of that equipment. Here, I don't have to maintain the equipment. I'm paying one lump sum price for a particular server, and that's it. And I pay that on a monthly fee. Whereas when I buy all this stuff on premise, it's a whole lot of money I'm spending coming out of my pocket right then, and then I still have to maintain it. So if that server crash, I gotta go get another server. If a server crash here, I can set it up where I can have auto scaling where multiple VMs can kick in. That's what I want. Okay, but this is just the cloud. I'm not knocking on premise because on premise is still good today. Okay, let's move right along. So I'm gonna change this to something that's solid. I don't want this to kick off, and I'm gonna go back here. Okay, and that took me to $55 a month. So think about it. I'm paying only for all this equipment. I'm just paying $55 a month for all this equipment. Now the price do rises because what if I need an entire storage facility? What if I need multiple applications? Remember, we still gotta have people authenticate to the network. So it's a lot of other stuff I gotta buy. I'm just right now getting the server, building out the server, and that's where you'll start. So think about this. You with a team of individuals who map out this entire structure. You're not doing it by yourself. I know in the classroom you're learning it by yourself, but you really are working with a team of individuals and you putting this together. So let's go ahead and run this. You're not doing it by yourself. And no real company will let one person go put a server on their network. No, it's not happening like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and click create. Now, in the midst of this being created, this gives me a time to talk a little bit more about things in the PowerPoint. So you're gonna see me looking over here. This is where my notes at. So if you see me looking over here, don't be saying, oh, what the professor's doing. Now, that build out, even though it's showing me a green check, it's still in the background building out. So just give me a little time to talk and complete the lecture. Okay, so now, so we talked a little bit. I showed you what the server room looked like. I also told you that we use blades. We don't use the big clunky thing. Now, I know you may go to a company and say, Professor Sistrunk said we don't use the clunky ones, but I see them right there. Yeah, they do still sell them, and some companies still buy them, but the real enterprise companies, they do not use them. Okay, so they need space, and that's what the blades allow us to do. Now, in this first chapter, you learned about 3 different setups, 3 different models. You learned about the standalone model, you learned about the work group model, and you learned about the client server. Now, listen to me carefully. When we talk about the standalone model and the work group model, read it, but forget about it. I know. I mean, the standalone and the work group model, that's just a historical reference. That's just telling you about how we used to how we used to do things in the past. We don't use them. We just keep it in the book for historical purposes. What you should be working on is what we call the client server model, the domain model, Active Directory. You're going to hit terms like that in the industry. Client server setup. We really never in the industry say client server. We may say the domain, or we may say Active Directory. You will hear people say this all the time. Well, what's the problem with what's happening on a domain? These are the terms we really use. But what you read about that's just historical stuff. So you may see where it says standalone networking, a network model where each host functions independently and are connected by a local area network. That's simply you sitting at home and you connecting to your internet. Yes, it's a little deeper than that, but I really don't focus on that because that's not what you're learning here. You're learning the client server model. You're learning about domains. You're learning about Active Directory. So that historical stuff, I jump back. You can read it and learn it, but that's on you. Okay, I said that's on you. That's funny, ain't it? Work group modeling. A network model that is based on peer-to-peer networking where none of the hosts have a specific role. That is totally dangerous in a company. Can you imagine somebody turn their computer off and no one is able to print? That would be crazy. We need printers to be up. We need people to be able to function in an organization. So we don't worry about it. But client server model, a network model that allows domain networking. This is what a domain networking kicks in. That is important. So that's what we want to focus on. I'm gonna move right along. I'm still letting the server build up. So if it's looking like I'm not paying the server any mind, I'm really just letting it build up. Okay. So now let's talk about what company use what, okay, and how we use particular devices. And I said what company, but I'm talking about really the Windows application in itself. Think about this for a minute. When you look on computers and you say, hey, what version of Microsoft Windows do I have? You're going to see the professional version. The professional version is the version that we use on PCs, okay? We do not want to use the ultimate version or the enterprise version on PCs. But let me say this, as companies grow, then you'll see the enterprise version and the ultimate version used on PCs. It depends on how big a company is. If your company has thousands and thousands of people on it and you need more robust tools to be able to work with, you'll choose that version. So when you look on in this particular chapter and you're trying to figure out what version to use, just remember that version you use is based on how many people are in your organization. So remember that when you choosing what application. So you think about it, the team comes together and they say we need to implement servers within our network. Hopefully y'all already have servers, but let's say you don't and you want to put in some servers. Now you got to decide what type of application you're going to use. You just watched me choose Windows Server 2016. So you have to decide which one you're going to use. Now, let's go in here. Let's take a moment and go in here and see what's going on with the server. So now I want to take this IP address right here. It's an external IP address. I want to copy that right quick. And I'm going to paste it right here just for the fun of it. I don't normally do this, but I don't want to jump to another screen. I could possibly jump to another screen, but I'm just going to put it up there because I'm not going to change the page, at least not right now. But then I'm going to click here because every server has what they call the admin password, the administrative password. So I'm going to create an administrative password, and that password is just going to solely be for me, no one else. Now, I'm going to take this from up here because that's kind of wrong to do that, and I don't want to show you guys any bad habits. So I'm gonna snatch it from up here, cut, and I'm gonna put it over here on the side, paste, because I don't want you to develop bad habits. Sometimes you'll see somebody do something, and next thing you know, you got bad habits. We don't want you to have it. I want you to go into the industry having the best habits you possibly can, because we want to make sure that you're a producer. Don't do weird stuff like I just did. So I want to set Windows password. Here's my username. Don't worry if you see it and you try to use it, it's going to be gone real soon. So I wouldn't be concerned with trying to keep it, because I'm going to change it in a minute. Okay. The next thing, let me type this in real quick. And this is basically just a username that's for this particular server. Now I'm going to go ahead and set the password. You're going to see a weird number or a weird password. That's just the system creating a unique password. You see, that's a unique password. I'm going to copy that password and put it over here. Now, let's take a moment before we move on and find out why did I do that. So your organization will have what they call the Vice President of Information Technology, or the manager or senior manager of networking. This is the individual that will have this password. That will be the top level person, and it's going to be kept in one of the most secure places, because everyone other than this person will receive a username and password, but this person will be able to go in and delete their account, do whatever he wants to do. So when he hire IT people in, he have full control over the network. That's the senior person, and that's what that password would be. Now, what we do in our company is that we separate we separate the individuals. So it may be 2 or 3 individuals that had this password, but they the most senior of all the senior people that's in the IT department. So that's the password. So when you hit read on the screen, administrator passwords, those really just phony. This is the real administrator password for this particular server. So let's go ahead now and let's go ahead and run this particular server. Let's see if we can turn it on, in other words. Let's see what would happen. Well, the first thing we want to do to turn it on, see, I was about to make a mistake. I have to use what? Remote desktop. If you're in the Windows world, you have to use remote desktop. In the Linux world, you have to create an SSH key. But in the Windows world, you have to use the remote desktop. So let me go ahead and get remote desktop activated real quick to make sure I can use it. Let me pull it up. And like I said, here's remote desktop right here. Okay. As you can see, I'm finna go ahead and put that IP address in here. Copy it in. Let's see if it's gonna work. Okay, remember, in the real Windows world, and that's how they trick you on the test questions. They say, well, you need a SSH key to get into your Windows server. Wait a minute. SSH pass key? No. All I need is the remote desktop to connect. So remember that. That's an important question. Now it's asking me for my username, but I have to switch account because it's got my entire name in there. So I want to use a different account. And this is where I'm going to go ahead and put that that username in here. I'm going to copy that, drop it in. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to go put the password in. Get that password again. Cut, paste, and drop that in. Let's see if it works. I'm gonna tab and I'm gonna say click OK. Let's see what happens. It said, hey, your password don't work. Now the reason my password is not working, it changed, but my password may not work because I copied and pasted in. This time I'm just gonna do Control V, tab, and then I'm gonna say OK. Let's see what happens. It's still not recognizing my password. So let me make sure I got the right number here. Yes, I do. and I got my username. Let me see, do I got any spaces in this password? And see, I just saw it. I have spaces in the password. So be careful about that when you build your account out. You don't want to have spaces in your password. So let me try it again. And let's see what happens. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually click yes. So that's what should pop up. Now, what you didn't see is it's actually activating itself. I'm going to pull this over so you can see it because it went to my other screen. You can see now that I'm activating a server, and the server is actually doing. So this is going to take a moment. So I'm going to spend a little time talking. You see things popping up on the screen. That's the server actually now deploying itself. So what you're about to see when the server come up is you're going to see Active Directory. You're going to see that we are in a full functioning server. Okay, you have to give it a minute to get there, but you're going to see those particular things. So let's take a minute just to talk about the next steps when we come to dealing with a server. Okay, so Active Directory is important. If you ask me, Professor, what is Active Directory? Active Directory is a massive database that is inside of the server. Okay, it's a massive database, and it's very important because that's where you will go to do all of the functions that need to be done in here. What happens in here, it goes through Active Directory. As you can see right here, the server has come up. Now I'm actually in a server. It looks like I'm in a Windows platform, but it's key things in here to let you know that you are actually in a server. The first thing is up here, you see the IP address. When you see that bar, you automatically know I remoted into a server. That's what that bar represents, remoting. You are remoted into a server. You see Server Manager coming up right here. So Server Manager is now being launched. You also see things over here on the side, which is the GUI, or where you can go do PowerShell and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into that for this particular section, but there's multiple things going on right now in this server. So I'm going to stop the video here because when we come back in the next video, I'm going to go a little deep into showing you the different things in the server and explaining things for you. Okay, so this is Professor Sistrunk signing off, and we will be in the next section. Yes, it's building up. It looks beautiful. And this is how servers look when they build up. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, close program, because I don't know why it's coming up. And then I'm going to stop the video, and it's going to be a B connected to this. So this is 1A, look for 1B.